Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for the 2023 Pontiac Summit. Once again, your host, Keith Guberman.
Welcome to the 2023 version of the Pontiac Summit. Thank you to everybody for being here. Thank you for those that are tuning in on the internet. We have a pretty simple agenda. I'm going to talk for a few minutes about product announcements. We use this as the opportunity once a year to do that. That's about a couple of slides. We're then going to slip into a video, and then we have a wonderful panel of some programmatic pioneers is what I would call them, but some very smart folks that are going to talk about whatever we came up with for about 30 minutes, and then you'll be on your way. So without further ado, we'll kick off into the product announcements. Here we go. You can see Marcus and Ari will be joining me in a little bit. But before we can give you that content, we are going to talk about Pontiac, which is a platform that we all represent, and thank you for tuning in. So here we go. So Pontiac is broken into two sides. We've built our own CTV bidder, so it's a piece of technology that allows advertisers to buy ad space across all the CTV publishers. And we've also leaned into building our own audience research tool, which is a cookie-less tool to find your audience across any device. We're going to do the announcements on them separately because they're separate products, although obviously all part of the same platform. Start with the bidder. Okay, so last year we announced that we had made a bidder and that it plugged into some inventory. This year we get to announce that it's plugged into all of the inventory. We added a relationship with Disney, which is critical, a relationship with Roku, a relationship with Paramount. But this gives the buyers of the platform the ability to buy all of these different publishers with deals that we help negotiate or deals that the buyer brings to the table themselves. Live sports, which is a nice one, and a couple others, but all the integrations, we spent the year getting more and more of these, knocking down these doors for our clients, and it's gone well. We are missing one piece, I'd say, on the inventory side, but the two biggest things to announce today is one is that we're adding Freewheel, which adds us Peacock and NBC, which will be done in Q1. And then the other thing that we've added, we're going to talk about the cookie-less tool in a minute, but we've accepted the idea that there has to be some identity and some buying of data segments, the ability to onboard first-party data. And we've entered an agreement to build that backbone with TransUnion. So that'll give our buyers access to their entire data marketplace, which includes TrueOptic and Neustar and these legacy companies, as well as many others, as well as onboard first-party data. So that combination kind of solves data, the identity side, we call it. Obviously, we consider the art tool and the non-cookie-based stuff kind of a separate agenda. But these are the two biggest announcements for the bidder. So, yeah, I guess a round of applause. Yeah. Yay! Woo! All right. Thank you. Natural break. All right. So now, other side, a couple of things that we've released with the research tool. So as people who have used DSPs and us as we've built our own, two major things come up constantly in our world, and this is not just us, but forecasting is hard. It's hard to get right. It's hard to make sure that you see the universe, but don't overestimate what you can serve on. So we've spent a lot of time, but we have a forecasting tool, and that's it's proprietary, and it takes into account a lot of different things, but that has been released. And then the last one is that as you buy these deals, some of these publishers let you see the show people are watching. They let you see the IP address so you can see where the user is watching it in general, as well as a variety of other things, channel, network, series, title. So we've built a way that buyers can easily see what's available from all the deals that they've set up. And this makes navigating and planning these tools really to enhance the planning aspect. It lets the buyer figure out what they can actually pull off and do in 6 zip codes, across the nation, different styles of things. All right, well, that concludes the product announcement part of this. I think we're right on time. So you're going to all be able to enjoy a video by our own Christian Backey, who makes our walkthroughs, on how to set up a line item in the new Pontiac DSP. And as I'll do that, I'll welcome up my guests, and we'll get to hopefully a lively discussion. So thank you so much. And Chris, that's your cue to play the video.
Welcome to the Pontiac CTV Bidder. Today, we're going to show you how to upload your very first campaign. To start, create an advertiser. We're going to call this one tennis rackets. Now with your first advertiser, we're going to show you how to upload creatives. Select new creative, give your creative a name, such as Pontiac ad, 30 seconds, and then enter your VAS tag in the field provided. With the creative going through the audit process, you can build your first campaign. Select new campaign brings you to the management screen where you can set up geo-targeting, multiple line items, audience targeting, day parts, and more. Give your campaign a name, select your flight dates, and indicate whether you have an impression or a spend budget, and enter your budget. You can manage the lines and the creatives all from the campaign level. So adjusting the creatives on the campaign will trickle all the way down to every single line under the campaign. And the auto-pacing function will adjust the lines to ensure the campaign delivers in full. The targeting section allows you to choose from deals, certain geos, zip codes, your day parts, as well as stipulations for channel, network, and publisher targeting. Here, we're going to select a few states. By selecting required channel, we're indicating that we would only want to bid on impressions where the channel value is passed. Next, select the creative you uploaded, as well as the audience targeting you wish to utilize. Here, we're using a Pontiac art audience of tennis enthusiasts. Now that your campaign's set up, you can press submit, and then begin to select your line items. Use the icons to quickly set up a campaign for a specific publisher. Once you select that publisher, adjust the name as needed, and select the delivery weight. If all weights for all items are the same, they will split the budget evenly amongst themselves. If you would like to adjust the weighting scale, press the edit button below the icons and select how you would like to weight. You can use the bid data section to understand your campaign a little bit more, seeing live information such as bid request, bids, impressions, and confirmed spend. For more information, click on the Reporting tab, where you can pull custom reports based on specific fields of your choosing. In the Reporting tab, you have various simple reports that generate, but the custom reports are where you get the most detail. To begin, select New Custom Report and select your campaign and your flight dates that you wish to view reporting for. For this campaign, we're going to select line, line name, DMA, zip code, publisher, channel, impressions, media cost, total cost, and video completions. We're going to give it a name and press save. You can view this report in the platform, or you can edit the report and have it delivered automatically via your email or S3 bucket or FTP. Once that report is generated, you can select download and you'll see your awesome reporting. As you can see, there's tons of information which goes all the way down to the channel as requested, so you can see exactly which content your users are viewing. By throwing this data in a pivot table, you can easily see which channels are being bought through which publishers. So now you can sit back on your couch, put your feet up, and see one of your ads on the big screen.
All right. Thank you, Christian. Welcome back. Welcome to the stage. Thanks for both being here. I'm going to give you a chance, I guess, to introduce yourselves, if you don't mind. Marcus, if you could go first.
Yeah, hey everybody, I'm Marcus Pratt. I'm SVP of Insights and Technology at Mediasmith. We're an independent media agency headquartered on the West Coast, but distributed workforce. Do all forms of media for our clients, and I oversee analytics as well as all the hands-to-keyboard activations, so programmatic buying, search, social, all that sort of stuff. So lots of fun.
Thank you. Ari?
Hi, I'm Ari Paparo. I like to describe myself as an ad tech influencer. I'm sort of half unemployed. I have a podcast. You should check it out, Marketecture Podcast. The episode with Keith was the funniest thing I've ever recorded. There's also a paid service where you can get access to hundreds of hours of interviews with CEOs that are less funny but more informative.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. All right, let's start with you.
All right.
Why? How did you get into this business? Why did you get into this business? Give me some basics. Go back in time a little bit.
I'm coming up on 20 years.
Okay.
So 2004 was my first ad tech job. DoubleClick. I was duped into this because it was like 2004. There weren't a lot of jobs. It was really kind of a tough economy for digital, especially in New York. Interviewed at DoubleClick. They were like, could you start Monday? And I was like, little warning bells going off. And I was like, okay, I guess. And then I show up on Monday and I was in charge of a product that you're probably all too young to know about called Dart Motif, which was a a technical term for it is a stinking pile of horseshit, and I fixed it, and that kicked off my career. And since then, I've just done literally every possible thing you can imagine in ad tech.
That's good.
Yeah.
What about yourself? How did you find yourself doing this?
So I also was looking for a job. Fresh out of college, I applied to a job at MediaSmith on Craigslist. That's what one does. And I was like, I wanted to get into marketing, digital marketing. I was like, this sounds interesting. And I go in and I'm like, so you guys you don't make the ads at all. So yeah, they probably should have given the job to somebody who knew what a media agency was. But thankfully our founder saw potential in me and had some other experience in the space. And then started in kind of a general planning role. And then once programmatic looked like it was going to be a thing, made the case and worked with management to kind of start that practice and pivoted into that more technology role, building out that hands-on keyboard team.
So you've only had one job since college?
One company, many jobs.
Many jobs,
yeah.
right. Yeah.
So
your LinkedIn is like this long?
it is. I could probably break it up into a few different things, but yeah, a lot of business cards, all the same company on there.
That is amazing. Okay, so both have been seeing a lot of things, seeing a lot of changes over the years. I'll throw this to you first. The cookies, they say the cookies are going away. Anything that you've done to prepare or any thoughts on the overall topic?
Yeah, so I mean, I think whether next year's the year or not, it's been happening, and we're already starting to see so much loss of fidelity. If you work in that identity resolution space, you're catching like, what is your match rate? And it's been going down for years, and even this year, there's just less and less data being captured. So we've taken the approach for some time that the promise of one-to-one targeting, serve 100 impressions and reach 100 people that are totally exactly in your target, zero waste, that was always BS. So going a little bit back to basics in terms of media buying and some of the things of like, where is our audience and where do we have a higher skew of them? Yes, leveraging targeting, leveraging third-party data where applicable, but we're really leaning a lot more into first party. So what do our clients have and where can we activate against that? And then more so recently, I'd say second party. So going, I consider Meta's data to be second party. If you're advertising on their platform and you're using their data, they have a relationship with the consumer that they've collected that. But we've seen a big explosion of that and thinking about, you mentioned Disney, like they've got some really interesting segments on what viewers are watching.
Right.
So that's something that they bring to the table, and when we're doing a media buy with them, we can kind of activate against that, and I don't think that's necessarily gonna be impacted in the same way that the third-party cookie, you're on some website and here's some data broker saying, hey, this person's a dog owner. We've been relying less and less on that, and frankly haven't seen the value there in a lot of cases for some time now.
And how's the fear of talking to a client about how things are going to go is that they have somebody else chirping that it may not go that way? How have you seen their reception to this idea that you're not going to reach the perfect person or the attribution is going to fall compared to 5 years ago some? Has there been more reception from the client side, or is it still a difficult bridge because they might be hearing from somebody else that there's new magical solution that identity will still exist?
It really depends, and it does take some conversation, and we like to work with advertisers who want to have that dialogue and understand it. I will say there's been a lot of money put into convincing people of things that weren't necessarily ever real to begin with, and we've all talked about like, 80 million people are in market for a BMW this month, right? So we can put some cold water on that in some cases and talk more about what's going to drive incremental change and impact for your business. So I think most of our clients they're receptive to that, but there are certainly cases where somebody else will come in and we'll kind of have to say, hey, maybe there's a little bit of exaggeration here. I think it'll be interesting to see next year. There's a little bit of a tale of two stories out there, and you go to conferences and some people are like, here's how we're going to solve it. And instead of cookies, we're going to try using this. And don't worry, it's not fingerprinting, but we're going to do all this stuff and shine a flashlight here and we'll know exactly who you are.
Right.
And then there's the other track at some conferences that's like, multi-touch attribution is not going to be so effective. So let's talk about more advanced MIC modeling and econometrics and things like that on on the attribution side, and then targeting is a similar thing. Okay, what other data sources can we use? So I'm very much on that kind of second track, but there are still people who I think are going to be in for a bit of a rude awakening at some point.
You sit and you talk to a lot of these different companies
Yeah.
that come with identity solutions or not. What is your take on, does the identity, are they going to work? I mean, what is the...
It's going to be a massive disruption. So just to set the facts, because I always get confused, so maybe as a public service I'll help. The current plan is 1% of browsers will not have cookies in the first half of 2024. Chrome. And then it goes to 100 in the second half of 2024. That's the current plan according to Google. I think it's going, even if we're prepared, it's going to be a total shit show because there's too many parts, and switching identity providers or third-party data providers and this matrix of the different vendors involved at different levels of prep is going to be very disruptive. I think the best analogy that we have is what happened with Apple ATT because that was very public, and what happened was they announced it, it came out, and some companies were prepared and other companies were not. And then what we saw was like Google really had no effect on Google at all. Meta had a lot of effect. Their stock got hammered, their ad results went down, and then they caught up about 12 months later. Snapchat still hasn't caught up. If you're an owner of Snapchat stock, which I unfortunately am, it does nothing but go down, even though people like the product because they fouled up the transition to the post-ATT world. And I think from a vendor's perspective, you'll probably see similar, where some vendors, DSP, SSP, whatever, will have a really good solution on day one, and it'll be annoying and difficult and whatever, but it'll kind of work. Others may fall flat in their face. Clients, same thing. Some clients may not be prepared. The client will be like, why aren't I seeing any conversions anymore? Probably good reasons. I think the second half of 2024 is going to be very difficult for everyone involved in digital advertising.
Nice. That's the proverbial bombs start going off slowly from Chrome.
There's also a metaphor I've used before is like the blast radius. Day one blast radius. I don't have any conversions. Okay, we can fix that. Day two blast radius. Like my media mix models don't work anymore. Day three blast radius is like my entire CRM system is fucked up.
Right.
What we don't really know how all these things interact, and I think it's going to be very challenging.
That's a great point about CRM systems as well. So we talked about, this is Chrome mostly driving this, although Safari and the Apple products have done this years ago, as you mentioned, but Chrome and Google has this process where they're going to remove the third-party cookies, and there's the privacy sandbox.
Yes.
But my question I'm going to pose is, Google, I looked at the numbers before we sat down, did about $280 billion in revenue for the company. And somewhere, it's hard to figure out, they say like 20 billion, 30 billion is associated with the ad products that are not search and YouTube. So now I'm triangulating, there's the ad server, which is big, and a bunch of stuff. But then you get the SSP, AdX, and the DSP, which is DV360. And those are the tools they've made. To me, that doesn't seem like a big part of their business. They've got a giant business. But when it's been, the European Union and other people have written that maybe they'll break up parts of Google, they don't seem to be sounding like they're willing to lose this SSP, DSP thing, even though on paper, or at least what we're able to triangulate, is it's not that much money. Why, if you own search and you own YouTube, which has the NFL and all this stuff, why do they care about keeping these complicated ad products?
Let me give it a shot. So once again, start with the facts, which is the Department of Justice has asked in their complaint for Google to spin out AdX and DFP GAM only. The Department of Justice has not asked them to spin out DV360 at all. No one has, actually, and neither has Europe. So we're really talking sell side here. So if you just think sell side, then I think they would actually sacrifice it. I don't think having the sell side matters that much to Google's long-term strategy. I think they care a lot more about the buy side, having their arms around big agencies with DV360 and Google Ads, Google AdWords, whatever you want to call it, for the smaller guys, just controlling that demand, and then they shuttle it to YouTube, or they shuttle it to GDN, or they shuttle it to wherever. I think that's what they want strategically, and so I wouldn't be surprised. I would actually predict that they will spin out AdX and DFP, the publisher side.
Interesting. Any thoughts from you?
I think, Ari, you know a lot more about this than me and spend a lot of time talking about it, but I just wonder, how much do they value the DFP side of things? It's just got to be so valuable to be on pretty much every website that sells advertising.
Yeah.
And like from a a broader data collection standpoint, I think, Keith, to your question, like, why do they care? You see some of the stuff that's coming out in this current lawsuit of like, hey, let's boost the revenue a little bit. I don't want my staff to lose $100,000 worth of stock options or whatever. So I think growth, that they're going to always want it. But I'm curious to get your perspective on the strategic value of what they now call a GAM, I guess.
Right. Well, we know what the value is because it's that piece of the business, that like $16 billion or $18 billion network business, of which probably more than half is buy side. So the value of the sell side is, $5 to $10 billion to them, I think. I do think there's a philosophical thing. I think the people who founded Google are very much of the Web 1.0 generation, like the people who were so excited about the internet that they wanted to go into it. And a big part of that is the ability to publish your own website and make money on it. And so I think they really like that. If you go to Larry and Sergey, they're like, we want to help publishers create the open internet. Yeah. They don't want to be a walled garden like Facebook and stuff. So there probably is a little bit of that going on too.
That makes sense.
And from an investment standpoint, I guess, do you all feel like you're seeing them focus on that? I feel like every time you see a press release from Google, it's about the O&O and staying kind of within their walls. It sort of feels like maybe it's not a foregone conclusion, but they're preparing for that. And it's like, hey, we don't need to fatten up this calf too much if the DOJ is going to make us give it away.
They offered, it was reported that they had offered the DOJ that they would put that business into a separate division of Alphabet. So there was sort of a walled garden, not a walled garden, a wall between that and search and YouTube. But the Department of Justice kind of laughed at that proposal.
Interesting. Okay, so as cookies go away, we'll take a turn from the Google conversation specifically to now we have this idea that the ability to target and the information that you'll have about the ad space or the user that's looking at it, we're going to have a little bit less ability to customize the ad. I think that's just, again, in second-party data, there will be many Band-Aids and we'll see a lot of things. But stepping back, if there's less data about the users, there's less ability to figure out the audience that you want to reach and how you can do it, there's going to be more of the classic term in our business, which is spray and pray, sort of lots of ads to huge groups of people. Very philosophical question, but is the fact that there will be more ads that are less targeted annoy the viewer public? Will they start to say, hey, I kind of miss some of those more personalized ads that I didn't have to see as often? Marcus.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to talk about effectiveness here, because you talk about spray and pray, and a lot of that is in some sort of last touch attribution world. So, right, if you think about it, there's how many 100 million people in the US, you can serve 300 million impressions once a month, and if you get them all, you got a cookie and hope they check out. So that's been part of that tactic for now. So I think confusing targeting the person who's very likely to buy, regardless of whether they see your 728 by 90 or not, and actually driving effectiveness with advertising, I think those are two different things, and there's a little bit of a decoupling coming in here. A lot of smart marketers have been doing this for a long time, which is why they're not serving billions and billions of programmatic display impressions just because everybody comes through with a cookie. When I started in the business, it was like, wow, look at that, for like these major businesses, everybody that converts online was driven by display advertising.
Yes.
Like that was it, right? But it's serving an ad to somebody while they're in the store, metaphorically speaking, does not always mean effectiveness. Targeting is obviously a big part of effectiveness, and if you have a small audience, I think it's going to be difficult. We saw some of this, you mentioned, on Facebook, and it's like a lot of companies, they built their business there saying, hey, what's the 1% that we can actually start our company and reach them? So I think there will be some challenges for some of those companies, but actually if you're honest with yourself as a marketer and you've got a decent addressable market, focusing on overall effectiveness and what that looks like, as opposed to trying to find a total needle in a haystack, be a difficult thing. That's maybe part of that second half blast radius, but looking at that long-term value and what's actually driving incremental impact, I don't think we'll see as much of that total bomb went off moment of, hey, my ads aren't effective. You just have to look at it the right way.
I'm not sure exactly what I would predict, but I would say that it's going to be a big change without cookies and with more privacy. And I hope it will sort of shake up some of the assumptions that have been made in the modern advertising ecosystem. The most obvious one being that advertisers consistently underinvest in Safari consumers versus Chrome consumers. It's an obvious inefficiency in the market, but no one wants to do anything about it. So you get rid of cookies, you have to do something about it. And I think similarly, to the extent that cookie-based attribution will go away, you'll have web pages will be designed differently because just setting a cookie won't be valuable. I mean, that started with the viewability stuff 10 years ago, but it should continue. And you could see some pretty radically different web designs, I think, so that you get more impactful, more measurable impressions that don't necessarily ladder up to an attribution model. I don't know if I answered your question, but I answered the question I wanted to ask.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm going to tee the next one to you then,
Okay.
because this is something that you spend a lot of time thinking about and talking about, as do I. But let's go to the new, I call it DSP SSP wars, or the fact that some DSPs are going straight to the publishers and demanding things, and SSPs are going straight to the agencies. Why is this happening now?
Yeah.
Let's start with that.
Yeah, I think I looked at it in the lens of pricing, in that if we take like a 10-year time frame, the rates charged by DSPs and SSPs have come down a lot over the last 10 years. SSPs got hit hard with the transparency push because many of them legitimately had
Couple of layers in there.
couple layers of fees that were not disclosed to people. And then also the second price auction allowed them to take. So SSP take rates, I don't like to use the word margin because it means something different. Take rates have been going down. DSPs, very competitive market. DV360 and Trade Desk are at each other's throats trying to get lower fees. So they've come down a bit. But at some point you can't get the fee down lower because a company's just not going to go lower. They're like, it's 10%. Take it. I'm sorry. I want your business, but I'm not going to go to 9. Right? That's what happens in business. And so, what do you do? Well, you take somebody else's fees, right? You look around and say, I'm not going to be able to go lower than 10% on my DSP, let's say, if I'm the Trade Desk. But I see somebody else in the value chain who's making 10%. Let's grab 5 of that. It's both growth for me and it's a benefit to my customer because I can tell the customer I just took 5% out of the so-called ad tech tax. Right? And so it's so that's my take on it. This is a different front in a pricing battle.
And so would you say in that case that the publishers and the advertisers win, the SSPs, or somebody who
It
loses
should be
that
good for
5%
everybody.
doesn't?
Having less take rate in the entire chain is good for everybody.
Right, and more of the money flows to the publisher, right? That'll you put $1 in and what comes out. I think what I'm curious to see as this plays out is the interoperability and if I want to buy this website, I have to buy it through the Trade Desk because if I'm buying it through DV360, then the Trade Desk is going to charge them 10% instead of their sweetheart deal.
Yes.
And then does that eventually erode the value prop of a DSP to say we can access all this inventory and make decisions in kind of a bulk fashion? I would hate to see that kind of squabbling change that so that now we have to have as many DSPs as there are SSPs, which I think there's like 40 some endpoints in there now, which is ridiculous. So Keith, I'm curious what you think about that actually.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because you said it's some businesses get to the point where they can't go any lower. The technology costs as much to do it. I think it's being driven mostly by the cookies going away. I think it's all tied together because a DSP that has the ability to take all the audience and the cookie information off all the SSPs and make it easier for the buyer. Hey, we're going to reach this audience across all these things. It's based on cookies. If the cookies are gone, for one, you don't need the machine. This is a lot of how Pontiac got here, but you don't need a machine to make all these decisions and check all, ours built a couple of bidders, but you got to check over all the audience segments to see if that user's in them. That's a huge amount of computing power, a huge amount of orchestration because you still have to return the bid in 100 milliseconds. So it's kind of like the SSP technology, which is just ads available, do you want to buy it? They can morph that a little bit with less cookies and make it so you can push a button and be buy all that, and vice versa on the DSP side. I think it creates, with less cookies, less operating power, with less engineering that needs to be done. These guys all have big systems that manage ads. They all kind of do a similar thing. So I think it's been a natural point to his point of they need to get a little bit more market share. They don't really want to fight these take rate games. They'd rather just say, use us, you get this publisher, save you a little, I get a little more, let's call it a thing.
Yeah, but I want to build on Marcus's point about the kind of second order effects, which is, it sounds great but you could have entities that have too much power start using the power. You can imagine a DSP saying, no, we don't buy from those guys anymore.
Yeah,
Because,
which they do that. There is some of that already.
There should be at the low end.
Yes,
there should be at
true.
the crappy SSP level. But like you can imagine, it started to be like mom and dad are fighting on a lot of media campaigns. You could also imagine that these kind of reduced fees don't stay reduced when people become reliant upon you, and a lot of other kind of really interesting things like. A big part of this.
Big conversation. But we will end it with this thought, which is, okay, so, maybe less DSPs or more DSPs with more walled gardens. I think there's a retail media network all of a sudden for every retail business that exists, by the way.
Yeah.
So does that help as somebody who is an agency buyer and kind of is a company that says, we're going to handle all of this? If there's more platforms, there's less automation, there's more heavy lifting. Does that help the agencies grow in terms of their effectiveness or the necessity for it without getting into in-housing, out-housing? Do you think it, for what you guys do, does it help? If there's more platforms, is that more complexity you'll need help with?
I like that you call it out-housing, by the way. That's what we do at the agency business.
I think that's something else,
Yeah.
actually, but separate.
So it's an interesting question. I kind of want to separate the walled gardens as we think about them today from the retail media side. I think we love to rag on the walled gardens, and I've been a fan of the open internet for some time. And Larry and Sergey, hey, build a website, make it profitable. But you got to give credit where it's due. Like, what are some of the best ad products out there? They were developed by these walled gardens. So there's something to be said for that. I think if any one of them or a couple of them get too much power, I think that's problematic because that's where they start boosting that margin. Innovation starts to stall. We really don't like it from a transparency side, right? So I don't know what Google's long-term vision is, but I think some people might think you just log in and there's one thing and maybe they call it PMAX. And you enter in your budget and objective and then their robots take care of all of it from creative to optimization, right? And so my team hates it, right? They're like, can I get better reporting out of this? And they're like, no, the AI is handling it. But I think that if there are enough walled gardens, if we have more of them, if you consider Roku to be one, or if these DSPs become their own walled garden, I think there'll be enough competition there that somebody will say, hey, we're providing this better transparency, and that actually could be a good enough thing for the industry and for advertisers. I think on the retail media side, there needs to be, I think there's a big opportunity for tools that help brands buy across those. But right now, I'd say it's good for your average agency, provided that they can innovate and learn how to do those things. I had a really interesting conversation with somebody recently whose sole job is to do like search and shopping type advertising across the RMN. So he's buying stuff on Amazon, stuff on Instacart, and like dozens of other locations. That's a skill set that is very much in demand, right? If you're a CPG marketer and you are investing in those, traditional search on Google.com has gotten kind of commoditized, and that's something that we see is in-housed. Like more and more we get in RFP, it's like, hey, we want you to do all this stuff, but we got search handled, or we got search and social handled. I don't think you're going to see the brand saying, and we've got the 500 RMNs handled as well. They're going to be saying, hey, we need help with this. Yeah. So it's an opportunity for, I'd say, agencies if they can provide a valuable service in managing that, and I think probably tech companies who can help stitch that together, sort of as the DSPs did to say, we can get at this inventory and you don't have to upload the same image of your ice cream pint to 30 different places, right, exactly. or put in this promo. So we're seeing some of that already. I'm sure you've probably seen some companies that are doing some interesting stuff there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone wants to get a part of retail media. The problem is that it's naturally fragmented. You talk about 500 RMNs, but you have to think of it in terms of SKU overlap. How many SKUs are sold in both Home Depot and Walgreens? Like 0. So those two networks never intersect, right? Whereas Walgreens and Walmart, very high. So it's actually a really complicated subject and different for every advertiser, every sector, et cetera. And the tools on the buy side are kind of immature because the sell side is fragmented. And hopefully some vendors over time will try to solve that problem.
I mean, it's just on last point for you is just like it's getting more complicated, it's getting less complicated, it's more complicated. Where Where is it going in terms of just the overall complication of like what ad tech is? What do you think?
I think people need like new DSPs that just focus on TV, and like I know how to create a line item already. I just watched a 5-minute video, so I'm feeling very bullish.
Well,
Checks in the mail.
thank you so much for both
Can I
of you
make a
for
little
coming.
money doing trafficking around here?
You know what?
I hear you pay really well, right? Is that
yes,
true?
yes. Thank you so much, guys.
course.
Both of you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you to the audience. Thank you to those who watched. Till next year. Bye-bye.